All right. And we are live on the NBA Draft post-lottery show, the Draftdaq post-lottery show. Oh, man. This was a crazy lottery. These new odds over the last few years have really given us some fun outcomes. My name is Corey Tulaba, and I am here, as always, with my co-host, Albert Kim. Albert, how are you doing right now, this very second, live post-lottery?
Should we start off with a Detroit?
Let's go.
Dude, wow, what a freaking win for them. I'm pretty hyped, Corey. Like, I think now we can officially start putting together some like legit mock drafts.
Yeah,
and which we're gonna do tonight, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm hyped to talk about it. I think there are some interesting things, right? Like with Toronto moving up and Cleveland moving up. So a lot to cover, a lot to talk about. But hey, congrats to the Pistons. Congrats to Ben Wallace being the lucky charm for them and looking like he could play like maybe 12, 13 minutes a night, even at that age. So
the original small ball 5.
Yeah. So things are looking up for the Pistons, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Hell yeah, man. Look, not only, I mean, Houston got a win in this too, because Houston could have outright lost their pick to OKC. So, you know, I know that it seems like, oh, we didn't win the first pick, end of the world. Well, you kept you got the second pick. You got who I'm assuming is going to be, what many people consider a generational unicorn big man. But we'll get to that when we get to the mock draft. A winner / loser, the Orlando Magic, because they got the Bulls pick.
Yeah,
Bulls are losers, but so they have the 8th pick from Chicago in the Vucevic trade, but they get to keep, or they drop down with their own pick all the way to number 5, and that's where this draft is going to start.
Yeah.
Right. I think we know who the top 4 is going to be in some order. We don't know the order necessarily. Although it's going to get really fun at Cleveland, especially with just roster decisions. But it's going to start with the draft's going to start with Orlando at 5. So I'm excited that we're going to get the first crack at it, and maybe management in Orlando can copy our homework tonight and see what direction we end up going. All right, let's what else did we miss? Oh, Golden State 2 picks. Golden State 2 picks,
7 and
right?
14, yeah.
7 and 14. So Golden State took Minnesota's pick. That's big. Minnesota, they certainly could have used that pick.
We have to talk about Swin Cash and her reaction on live TV.
Oh,
which was freaking awesome.
I don't know if it was as good as Weltman's reaction in Orlando, just deadpan, dead face when he got the 5th pick, but a lot of good stuff. My heart was racing, man. For a second I thought the Bulls had a chance to jump, because up until I think the lottery kind of played out in the first 6 picks, right? The way it was supposed to. Is that how it went? And then before teams started dropping. So this is going to be fun. Let's get into it. Do you want the first pick or do you want the second pick?
I'll go first. That's the easy pick, right?
Yeah, you got the easy pick.
First pick of the, what are we talking about? 2021 NBA draft.
The 2021 NBA draft. It's coming.
It's getting exciting, Corey, to think about Cade on that team. Because it seems like it's going to be a lock to be Cade, unless I can't really think of them going like Maverick and grabbing Mobley there, right? Or I can't see that.
No, that would be wild. I mean, even if they weren't going to take Cade, you have to at least trade down.
Yeah,
they're not just going to go and draft whoever, but I think Cade is one of the safest number 1 overall picks that we've had in years. I mean, I get Zion. He was a safe one. But even Zion, you could at least talk yourself into the injury risk of Zion. right? But before that, I mean, who was the last guy who was just like no brain lock number one? We haven't had that in a while. And, looking at the Pistons roster, and we did a full breakdown on them. I mean, they drafted Killian. They have Saddiq Bey at small forward. Isaiah Stewart. They did well in the draft last year. We'll see what happens with Killian. There's a little bit of overlap in Saddiq and Cade, but I mean, we see these teams like Saddiq Bey is literally the type of guy that we see in the playoffs in that Jay Crowder spot at the 4. So like even I don't think there's that much overlap there, right? So I think that Cade's a no-brainer. You just have to take one of the most talented prospects in however many years and not overthink this, man. So it's Cade.
I think the small ball options become really fun for them, right? With Isaiah Stewart, Saddiq Bey, Cade, Killian, throw in Wayne Ellington there.
I mean, Jeremy Grant,
Jeremy Grant,
they had Jahlil Okafor. Not that he's a small ball, no, but I mean, and now, you look, there's not a lot of like big money tied up there, outside of Jeremy Grant. Like, who's on some big money deal, right? They're going to have moves to make in free agency at some point. It doesn't have to be this year, and it probably shouldn't be. Have another year where you just grow together as a young team and develop the right way. Don't rush things. But it's Cade, man. It's simple. There's no way to overthink it. And I want to say I'm not overthinking, and I'm picking for Houston and what I think Houston will do, not what I would do, right? And I think Houston's going to take Evan Mobley here with number 2. I think he's the consensus. I think that a lot of people think that he's a unicorn prospect. He's got some unicorn qualities, but that word gets overused, and I don't necessarily know if I think Evan's offense is, at the same place as, say, Anthony Davis or Giannis, some actual unicorns. I don't think he's there, but his offense also isn't Rudy Gobert. So, if he could potentially be Gobert with, some offensive game, if that's what you're drafting him for, and that's what you think he could be.
Yeah.
That's a foundational piece. Now, they don't have a whole lot else on that team. I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. balled out. Love him as a young piece. And Jayshawn Tate, first team all rookie, right?
Jeez. It's a quick spot, but we'll give it to him.
Yeah, and I'm forgetting somebody. Christian Wood. But Christian Wood and Evan Mobley, they can play together. So I wouldn't worry about it. They definitely need some kind of consistent initiator that they can count on night to night. John Wall is definitely going to be fun playing with them for the X amount of games that he's actually suiting up for. But, you can't count on him every single night. So, but I think they're going to go Evan Mobley. I think 1 and 2 is locked in, but as we get closer to the draft, I mean, this is why we do these things as a process and we do them in segments at different times during the draft, because, who knows with this stuff. But as of right now, I think Cade's going 1 to the Pistons and Mobley's going to go 2 to the Rockets. And now the Cleveland Cavaliers are on the clock, and Albert, you are on the clock for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
So, Corey, I do want to say, I feel like you saying who knows is really interesting once we get to the 3rd spot, because for me, I'm thinking about this Cleveland Cavaliers roster, and imagine you had Evan Mobley to that team. Like, let's say Houston goes Green 2 and Mobley drops to 3, then we're talking about Sexland plus Evan Mobley, and you kind of get Evan Mobley walking in, and he kind of walks in as their best passer. And that's that's kind of interesting, to think about, like the kind of inverted roles you can get with that squad and just the sheer talent. We saw Sexton go up a level. I thought Garland had a really nice season that wasn't really talked about a lot.
I have so much Darius Garland stuff.
Yeah. So Exactly. If you consider the growth of those two guys, plus them adding the skills and the talent and just the upside of an Evan Mobley. And the thing about Evan Mobley that's so fun, and the reason why we're talking about him at the very top of this draft is because he's the type of guy that you want to bet on if you're a GM, right? High floor, high ceiling. Those are the guys that are hard to find. And Mobley will walk in as a already solid rebounder, solid rim protector. And we know that he's got tools on offense that most centers his age don't have. So if you consider adding that to Cleveland, that gets interesting. But with you already taking him off the board and I'm sitting there at 3, I just don't know if, it has to be Jalen Green for me. And the reason why I say that is because if you add Suggs to that team, it just doesn't make sense. And you're going to have one of those 3 guards coming off the bench and feeling slighted and asking for a trade after their first or second season. And that's not going to be it. And then I don't know if I'm pretty sure they're not going to want to add Kuminga after adding Okoro last year. So if you consider Sexland plus Jalen Green, Okoro, Jared Allen, pretty good squad. It's a young, fun team. And so, I'm going to go ahead and take Jalen Green there.
Yeah, and that's who I would take. Now, I think long term.
Yeah.
And I felt this way regardless of what happened tonight. Sexland is just a fun, memory. I don't think it's something that was ever going to last, right? And I feel like that team will really open up when they clear that up. I think ultimately they're going to pick Garland over Sexton. Maybe I'm wrong. He seems more fun to play with. He really improved this year. He kind of fits what, you want out of a initiator / shot creator. But I don't think they should rush to trade Sexton. There's no rush. You could bring Green slowly off the bench or play him spot minutes when one of those 2 guys, misses games. He'll still get, 28, 32 minutes a night. But Garland Green long-term is insanely fun to me. And then you have Okoro, who is also somebody who likes to get out in the open court and is a good passer and can guard, whoever's you're going to need to guard in that backcourt. And then you have Jared Allen backing both of them up. And, USA Olympian Kevin Love is still there, lest, we not forget. But it's a tough decision for them, I guess, because, he doesn't exactly fit like a glove there. There's overlap, but his talent to me is overwhelming. And I agree with you. I think that's where they're going. Now we get Toronto jumping up into the top 4. I wasn't preparing, for a Toronto Jalen Suggs pairing. But Jalen Suggs is a Toronto kind of guy, right?
With Lowry potentially leaving, hell yeah, dude.
You're right. Like he's the kind of guy who could play with Van Vliet, right? He's big enough to play the 2, but he can also play make. Both of those guys can score a little bit and play make a little bit. So it's actually like one of the cleaner fits to me as far as like backcourt partners. He doesn't interfere with, the OGs and the Siakams or anybody. Like it's a clean fit. And I don't think it's something that Toronto has to overthink. As soon as they get him in for an interview, I think he's going to be atop of their board as far as realistic partners. Obviously, if Jalen Green falls there, that's a clean fit as well. And you got half man, half amazing part 2 up there, which would be fun up north. But I think they go Jalen Suggs.
Corey, I did want to say, I feel like the Suggs fit here is kind of perfect just because some fans might be like, what about Malachi Flynn? I feel like Flynn is the perfect first guard off your bench.
Yeah.
And then when we talk about the defensive potential of that squad, if we're going Anunoby, Siakam, Suggs, and who am I missing here?
Van Vliet.
Van Vliet.
It's after it.
That's a sick defensive lineup, and you have a lot of options there. And that's a lot of fun. That's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, and
Holy crap.
We'll see. Gary Trent is he a free agent or is he
restricted? Is he restricted?
I don't.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. But he's another fun piece for that team. It could be a quick retool for Toronto. You know, it could have went from a situation where they didn't land in the top 4, kind of had weird decisions to make, and you know, they kind of had to. We're in this position where do we rebuild? Do we go for it again? And now I think they get a pretty clean retool with a really great prospect for that backcourt. Suggs there is gonna be a lot of fun. Fit right into the culture. I love it. All right, so you're up. This is where the draft starts.
Wow, this is I messed myself up. I shouldn't have gone first. The 5th pick is like this might be the hardest pick of the draft.
It's up there.
This is a mind effort. Like imagine if I were the GM of the Orlando Magic right now. I've got picks 5 and 8.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Kuminga is on the board, but Jonathan Kuminga, is that the profile of player that I want to add to the roster I already have? Holy crap. This is actually insane. Kuminga's got the upside. I think Kuminga is a really, really good passer already. He shot the shit out of the ball this year. Not that he scored, that he hit a lot of them, but he kept on shooting.
Yeah,
I like the confidence. Damn. Barnes is sitting there. I don't want to add Barnes either. Keon Johnson measured in at like 6'2" today.
I saw that. I was waiting to talk about this. We said he looked small, and he was he was pretty much exactly the.
We did.
His wingspan is not killer either. You know, he's like, what was he, like 6'4" in shoes with like a 6'6.75" wingspan, something like that. It's like 6'7" wingspan.
We deserve a lot more credit than we get. We called the Keon small guy a long while ago. Here's the thing though, like I just it's kind of too difficult to pass. I mean, Billis had Mitchell going 5th today. Did you see that one? Interesting.
I saw.
He's with you.
He's with
Billis
me.
is with you. Yeah.
There's plenty of us out there.
Do you want to add Davion to Markelle Fultz, RJ Hampton, and Cole Anthony though?
I mean, would I would be fine with it. Do I think that Orlando's gonna do it? I don't. Not here.
Unless he's there at 8. But then again, damn, this is tough. Okay, you know what? This is boring because I'm kind of going chalk here. But for me, like even with Jonathan Isaac, even with all the young guys that they have, I can still see them. Okeke and his shooting will help. I think the upside of Kuminga. And another thing that we haven't talked about either is that they could package these 2 picks for something, 5 and 8. I don't know who's going to be really enticed by 5 and 8, but still, I mean, we've seen weirder trades, right? I'm just going to kind of go chalk here and take Kuminga because I feel like if we're talking about upside, we're talking about a rebuilding team. We're talking about his defensive potential, his offensive upside, the stuff that he was able to do in the mid-range, and the fact that he is not shy about taking threes. I don't think we're going to get a Ben Simmons type of situation here where he's just not going to be confident at all to shoot.
No.
I'm going to take Kuminga. And also, once again, I love his passing upside. I think that's kind of not the safest pick, but it would just be hard for Orlando to pass on him. So I'm going to take Kuminga here.
I agree with you. I think that them landing at 5 and that also having another pick at 8, they can afford to take an upside risk here.
Yeah.
And take a guy with monstrous upside. And look, he had a tougher bubble, than Jalen Green did, but he was still playing as a rookie in a pro league and had really positive moments. So it's not like he just totally flamed out. Like you said, he's a willing shooter, maybe sometimes too willing, but he's still learning the game. And he still brings he has physical tools you can't teach. Now we'll see how tall he actually is, hopefully at some point, as he gets measured, but he's certainly got the strength and the athleticism to play, I think, the 3 or the 4 and the quickness. And, I think that at least in Orlando, I mean, you're playing with a guy like Cole Anthony right now, Markelle Fultz, like they're not going to put the ball in Kuminga's hands and just from the jump and be like, you're our number one primary option. Like they have like guys to spread it around. I don't know when Isaac's getting back, but I guess they can afford to bring him along a little slower there, right? And we'll see. And they're just accumulating talent at this point, and maybe at 8 they'll be able to kind of plug and play, as far as that goes. So Kuminga goes 5th to the Magic. So our top 5 is Cade to Detroit, Mobley to Houston, Jalen Green to Cleveland, Jalen Suggs to Toronto, Jonathan Kuminga to Orlando. That's the top 5 I think a lot of people expect. Not the top 5 teams. A lot of people expected them to go to. But look, sometimes a consensus is a consensus for a reason. So we'll see. That's where the draft gets interesting. Now, Oklahoma City. They're funny because a lot of times you'll listen to a podcast or, you watch The Jump or whatever, and an analyst will be like, Oklahoma City has 400,000 picks coming up in the next 6 years. And you're like, I don't know if it's such an absurd number. I don't know if they're making it up at this point. They have so many picks. They have very few keepers, right? SGA, keeper. Dort, probably a keeper, but you can move on from him if you get a good offer. Poku, keeper, long-term prospect. Baisley, probably a keeper, but not overwhelming talent. They just traded for Kemba. Maladon had a good, rookie year. I think that OKC here, just from things I'm hearing about how much people love him, I think they're going to take Scotty Barnes. He measured with a 7'3", 7'2" and a half wingspan, just absolutely ridiculous wingspan. He's in great shape. We've talked about him on the Scotty Barnes episode. We believe in his shot, even if it isn't, the percentages didn't bear it out. We like the eye test on him. And he's a guy that can play make. He can defend 1 through 5. We'll see what the rebounding numbers look like in the pros when he's not, guarding point guards as much as he is now. But he's just a guy that I don't think that his ceiling is like crazy, crazy high as far as like, I don't think he's a superstar ever, but he also is probably a safe bet. Just like he's at least going to be a guy who could defend a bunch of positions and make smart passes. Now that was our guy, Ben Simmons in Philly in the playoffs. And he was a big time, negative for them. But that was a lot of mental stuff. Scotty will at least shoot those shots. So, it's a different situation. He's not going to have the load that Ben Simmons is going to have. He's going to be more of a secondary, tertiary playmaker rather than, primary like Ben Simmons. And from everything, we hear Scotty Barnes is a crazy worker. So I buy it. I think that he's a guy, young, great measurements, interesting, intriguing skills. Poku's got really intriguing skills. SGA is a beast, and they have a whole bunch of other stuff that they could do for the future. So I think he'll be fun in Oklahoma City, and he doesn't have pressure to go out and compete for a title team next year. He can kind of grow into himself, at his own pace.
I think what you mentioned about like the superstar potential, I think that's where things get a little interesting with Scotty Barnes, just because when we did the Scotty Barnes episode, I said this, and I may live to regret saying this, but I felt like he may eventually be a Draymond type of defender, Yeah. And then you start to question yourself, like, okay, how do you qualify Draymond as a star, right? And I see Draymond as a star, maybe not a superstar.
Yeah, and that's kind of for sure.
Right. And that's kind of what you're banking on with Scotty, because as you mentioned, he is not Ben Simmons in terms of mentality. This guy's an absolute dog. He's a really ferocious guy. He'll punch someone in the dick before he goes 4 games without putting up a shot in the fourth quarter. That's the type of energy that Scotty Barnes has. And so I think that's a good pick. I think the only thing here, though, Corey, to think about when we're talking about Presti, I wonder if Presti gives Davion a hard look here. Just thinking about the Davion fit with SGA right? And dude, I was looking at the OKC roster while you were talking.
Yeah.
Unbelievable names we have here. Charlie Brown Jr. on the current roster. Okay. Gabriel Deck, Jalen Horde, Josh Hall, Svi Mikhailiuk, of course. I mean, he's been around. But like, I was going to ask this. Why trade Moses Brown? I kind of liked Moses Brown for them. He was, doing stuff for them. I get it. I guess Boston wanted him, but okay. Anyway, so I was thinking like maybe Davion at 6. Also, Presti likes his white guys. Franz might be an option there at 6. But I think Scotty's a good pick. Yeah. I'm 7, right?
You're 7. You're Golden State. And we'll preface this by saying this pick very easily could be shipped out somewhere else, right? But as of now, we're not doing any fake trades, so you just get to pick for the Golden State Warriors, who are trying to get back into championship contention.
This is tough, dude. Okay, so like this will be my first hot take of the night. I don't really like hot takes, but dude, I actually think Keon's gonna plummet here a little bit. After the measurables and with the way that the draft order has worked itself out, I feel like Keon might drop like late lottery, even out of the lottery potentially here. Like, I know like a lot of teams may not care too much about size, but like I think he measured at like 6'3" without socks. Like he's a little dude. Like he's not a big wing anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm
with you.
Yeah.
I've been on this bandwagon. We've been on the bandwagon from the beginning. We could be completely and utterly wrong. But I think that we won't be. I think, it'll bear out for us.
Okay, then I'm going to pick someone that I think you're pretty high on. With the 7th pick in the 2021 NBA Draft, the Golden State Warriors select point guard Davion Mitchell from the University of Baylor. I like Davion at this spot because I kind of really like Davion coming off the bench for them.
Yeah.
I think he'll give them scoring pop. And we've talked about, and you did your video, the shooting upside is real with Davion. His improvement year to year. We talked about how much he improved after he transferred to Baylor too, and into this last season. Obviously, we know what we're going to get from him defensively, and I feel like they could always use a little bit. I think the Warriors would like to add like a strong defensive guard.
Yeah, I don't think Nico's they're the guy they're gonna look for in year 2 to fill that role.
Lockdown guard Jordan Poole. It's not it. So I think Davion is a good pick here, and him going to 7, obviously for you and I, is not too high. And like right now, Tankathon has Keon going 7th. I don't see that, and I like Davion way more as a prospect right now. So Davion 7th to the Golden State Warriors. Your thoughts?
Well, I fucking love it. Can you imagine just when they're really getting after it, Davion and Draymond, just fucking the energy defensively they're going to bring to that team in this scenario. Now, I'm about to go on a little Davion Mitchell rant for Draft Twitter.
Okay.
Because you're fucking sleeping on my guy. All right? I've been seeing some boards with Davion Mitchell at like 27, 30 by guys that I really like, really respect their opinion. You got to go back and watch this kid's tape. This kid is fucking unbelievable defensively as a point of attack defender. Okay? He is an elite athlete on the ground as far as quickness, change of pace, stop on a dime. Okay, there's a lot of guys who are older, have good, senior seasons, junior seasons, whatever, right? And you go, all right, well, they're more experienced, they're older, blah, blah, blah. But they don't have the physical tools to then have it translate to the NBA. Davion Mitchell has like the quickest first step in the draft. Maybe Jalen Green, right? You can put above him. He really developed as a shooter.
Mm-hmm.
That shooting is at least at a point that you got to close. He's going to be able to be, I mean, with the extra space, you're really sleeping on this kid. I mean, you're looking at potentially somebody who is going to have Marcus Smart, Drew Holiday, maybe not at that peak of Drew, but close, because Drew he's a little taller.
Yeah.
But a guy that, you've seen Davion Mitchell completely guard Cade Cunningham.
Strong.
I did a breakdown on that. You can watch it on the YouTube channel. You guys are sleeping on him. If you have him in the 20s, you're sleeping. You want to look and talk about his age. All right, I get it. You want to say, oh, he's just a March Madness darling. I get it. But the guy fucking wins. That counts for something. The dog, yeah, he has the dog. And that matters. All right? He's not going to be afraid in the fourth quarter of a game. And he has actual NBA skills that will translate. His speed is going to translate. His defense is going to translate. His jump shot will translate. And here, in a situation where he's in Golden State, you could put him off the ball. How many opportunities is he going to get off of Klay Thompson and Steph Curry and Draymond and these guys?
Hell yeah.
But put him anywhere else. I don't even care. Bet on this kid. Please. I'm begging you. All right? Because you're going to look at your boards and be like, man, 30 was really low. 26 was really low for him. What was I thinking? You weren't thinking is the thing. Go and watch him. Don't buy into this shit that he's too old. This kid can play. You don't have to be like me and be a crazy person who has him fifth. Okay? You don't have to be like that. I'm not telling you. I'm not asking you. I'm not begging you for that. What I'm telling you to do is reevaluate what kind of skill level this kid has, because I think that you're sleeping on it. And he might not be an above the rim athlete, but on the ground, he's about as good as it gets in this draft. So all I'm saying is intangibles, skill, athleticism. He has the things that any team should want. And I'm just telling you, move them up out of, your top in the 25 to 30 range. Please move him up, because you might think I'm a crazy person for having him at 5, but I don't even think you fucking watched him if you have him at 25.
So Corey's pretty happy with my 7th pick of the draft. Davion going to the Warriors. Dude, I hear you. I 1,000,000,000,000% agree. I think it's so funny. Like, everyone keeps calling him Donovan Mitchell's brother. And it's kind of, we're kind of getting the same vibes, like with his draft status too, When Donovan was coming in, I think a lot of people had him like mid to late lottery, and which is where he went. And I think Davion's going to end up going a little bit higher. And I really wouldn't be surprised if it's not just you and I who thinks this, and like Golden State actually takes him at 7th. Like, I don't think this is me and you just being biased and throwing out some nonsense here. Like, it's a real possibility with everything that you talked about. Like, you have Davion now spearheading your defense with Draymond waiting behind him. Are you kidding me? The defensive upside. And then we talk about Steph, Klay, and also, I mean, Mr. Secret Weapon, right? Mr. X Factor, Andrew Wiggins, right?
Yeah, there you go.
The Maple Mamba. So it's, we're talking about a squad here that's really going to contend next year. So I think Davion to number 7 is actually super realistic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I think it's a smart play here if the draft plays out like this. All right. I'm on the clock. Orlando's second pick 8. And I'm going to take a little swerve. For just, I think, how we felt personally. We just did an episode on him recently.
Okay.
I think Orlando needs a little bit of shooting. You can never get enough defense, especially with that backcourt. They just took Kuminga to fill the 3/4 spot. Their front court, they don't have much shooting. They have theoretical shooting in Bamba and Carter. Isaac, theoretical shooter.
Sure.
You get another guy who could fit in and potentially be part of an elite defensive lineup. I'm going to take Moses Moody at number 8 for the Orlando Magic. 7'1" wingspan, I believe he measured in at. Really good measurables. I'm buying the shot. He could fit with any of the backcourt kids that they got Fultz and Cole Anthony and RJ Hampton. He's not going to overlap there. He could play the 2 or the 3. And just the potential defensive lineup of Markelle Fultz, Moses Moody, Kuminga, Isaac, and Wendell Carter or Mo Bamba, down the line is fun to think about. So, I mean, look, Moses Moody, and we covered him. We took a long time to cover him, but at the end of the day, simple. He's a guy who has 3-and-D baseline with potential to be a guy who's averaging close to 20 points per game in the right season. Maybe he's a 1-time, 2-time All-Star kind of guy, if he, kind of peaks his potential. So I think he'd be an interesting fit for Orlando there. And Orlando, walks away with Kuminga and Moody. I mean, that's, a pretty good haul for them.
Shouts to Trice High and all the Moses Moody analysis he gave us. I think that's a great pick, dude. I actually didn't see that one coming. When you said shooting and defensive upside, I actually thought you were going to go Wagner, which kind of makes things interesting for me at 9 with the Sacramento Kings, because I think they can go a lot of different ways here with the Kings. For me, I think the way that my mind is working, we're kind of set at guard with Fox and Halliburton. I feel like Barnes and Hield are guys that are at it is a really good chance those guys get traded. Marvin Bagley is another guy that I know that they're going to give a hard look at and wonder what to do in terms of the future with him. I think at this point in the draft, it's a little high for me to go with Isaiah Jackson, which is someone who I am strongly considering here, considering their center right now is like Richaun Holmes, which
he's gonna get paid.
Yeah. Richaun Holmes is a really, really serviceable, really good center in the NBA that people don't know about or don't talk enough about. But for me at number 9, I'm actually gonna go Franz Wagner here. I think Wagner is a good choice because I'm thinking about the offensive fluidity that they'll have with Fox, Halliburton, and Wagner. And if they keep Hield or Hield leaves and I don't know, Jameis Ramsey comes into that spot. Ramsey, I think, is a really good shooter, a guy that I like.
I liked him in the draft.
Yeah. So I think Wagner is a good choice here. If they can retain Richaun Holmes, then we're talking about Holmes, Wagner, either Barnes or Hield plus Halliburton and Fox. That's a nice, fun roster. A young roster that I think has a lot of potential. I think the only other name that I was thinking about here at 9 was Jalen Johnson, or maybe even like Alperen Sengun, because I don't know how. I mean, we know the Kings and their history with who was that guy they took a couple of years ago?
Papa Giannis.
Papa Giannis, right? Yeah, Papa. So maybe they'll have some scars with that one and not take Sengun so high, but I think even Sengun at 9 wouldn't be terrible.
He's
and
so
you and I,
good.
We haven't talked about him yet, but the way that he dominated in Turkey at age 18 was unfreaking believable. But for me, I think Wagner at 9 is kind of like the perfect situation. And kind of, I think even on the Wagner pod, I said Wagner on Sacramento might be fun. Yeah. So I'm going to go Wagner at 9, and I'm going to be excited about his defensive versatility. I'm going to be excited about his shooting. I'm going to be excited about the fit next to Halliburton and Fox. And I think he's we talked about it, man. He is one of the elite role players in this draft. And for him to enter into that role player role with that squad, I think it's kind of perfect. So I'm going to go Franz Wagner here.
Yeah, you can't be mad at getting good basketball players at pick 9. That's a spot that doesn't always pan out. You got your Kevin Knoxes of the world at that spot. So if you can get a guy like Franz Wagner, there's definitely guys who have more potential at this point of the draft. But for the Kings, I think you're looking for good basketball players at this point, and Wagner's, a good basketball player baseline. And he's a guy that you look at, you could just envision him 4 years down the line playing in a big spot in the playoffs. He's not going to get played off the floor defensively. He's going to be able to knock down shots. He's going to move the ball. It's not going to stick with him. He's a guy that you can see in the playoffs. He's that Marcus Morris, Jay Crowder kind of, power forward going forward that could fit in any lineup. So I'm for it. And that brings me to number 10. the New Orleans Pelicans, who I think are going to get a really fun player. I know that we have talked about this actual situation happening when we did our book night episode with my guy Mavs Draft. Please reconsider your Davion ranking. I'm going to take James Bouknight for the New Orleans Pelicans.
Oh, wow.
So, look, they're not like stacked at shooting guard. Josh Hart's going to leave, or he wants to leave. And then you're looking at, like, who's your shooting guard? Eric Bledsoe? Right? We don't know what's going to happen with Lonzo. They can match, but, he seems like a guy who's probably going to be close to the way out. And then, it gets pretty bleak after that. I mean, Kyra is a point guard. And despite limited minutes, he played really well for them last year. Kid, as a rookie point guard, barely turned the ball over, which was a really great sign. I'm still super high on him. I had him 5th on my board last year. Kind of wish I even had him at 4 on my board, and I still believe in his upside long term there. And I think that Bouknight's a guy who could space the floor. They need that with that front court situation that they have going on. The kid gets buckets, and he's an off-ball guy. So Point Zion, it allows him, I think, Bouknight to thrive the most. He's going to be able to play it in transition and cutting off the ball and spacing the floor. And I love that kind of situation for Bouknight. I look at him as kind of like the guy who has like Jamal Murray potential in this draft.
Corey, I do want to say, if you are right and they take Bouknight, this is maybe the scariest team in transition in the league.
Yeah.
Lonzo, Bouknight, Kira Lewis, and Zion in transition.
They got a lot of transition guys.
Dear God, we're talking about, and now with freaking SVG gone, and I did want to say, you mentioned Josh Hart is on his way out. I think SVG is fired because of how he used Josh Hart. That's one of the main reasons, I think, because holy crap, you talk about a guy that could have helped that team and should have been playing a lot more. That's Josh Hart. I can't believe the way that Josh Hart was used this year by SVG. That really broke my heart. And if Josh Hart ends up leaving and he pops next year, the Pelicans are going to freaking hate themselves for that one. But I hear you, man. I think Bouknight is a high upside guy. You and I we both like him a lot. I actually think Bouknight is a better shooter than the numbers say. And I think his handle and his shiftiness and what he can do attacking the basket and his athletic pop, like people want to talk about Keon Johnson and his athleticism. I'll pass and I'll take Bouknight instead. I think Bouknight has way more potential as a scorer and shot maker. But hey, I mentioned him. Keon Johnson is actually an interesting name here because the Pelicans might consider it here at number 10. If he's still there on the board, he might be someone that they consider. Yeah. But for me and you, I think we're both on the same page. I think Bouknight over Keon Johnson, and I think that's a really solid pick. I think it's a good one.
All right, you're on the clock for LaMelo Ball's Charlotte Hornets.
Damn.
This is an important pick for Charlotte.
This is.
Because they've been building really smart. They've selected really good players. And this is potentially the last time they're going to be in the lottery.
Okay, Moody's off the board. Give me a second. So, okay, I have someone in mind.
Okay.
I wonder if I'm crazy for doing this here. I actually no, I'm not. I think I'm spot on for taking this one here because Cody Zeller is not the future at center.
He's not.
No. So at 11, the Turkish Terminator, Alperen Sengun, is on the board. You add Sengun as your 5 here, 4 or 5, whatever, with the roster that they have, the shooting, the athleticism. You know, you put him next to PJ Washington and a Miles Bridges, Gordon Hayward, Malik. I wonder what happens with Malik Monk this offseason. That's another thing to think about. LaMelo Ball. I'm gonna go Sengun here because I think Sengun gives them an option down low that they didn't have this past season.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they posted up PJ Washington a little bit, actually a good amount. But Cody Zeller is just not the answer there. And if you have Sengun as a guy who I mean, Corey, you and I haven't done a pod on Sengun yet, but this MFer
coming
is
soon.
Something else. Holy crap. Sengun, okay, we're not going to do the pod right now, but his feet, I freaking love his feet. I think unreal. The shooting potential on him is there as well. I just think he just didn't need to shoot that much. But does that mean he can't shoot? Hell no. I think he's going to be a good free throw shooter. I think he may even stretch that out to 3. I think Sengun at 11 is good value and a guy that they might actually end up finding as like one of the steals of this draft. And I feel pretty confident in this one, actually. Sengun at 11 to the Hornets.
All right. I like it. To me, I'll say it. I have Sengun 6th on my board. So
Jesus.
I think that's great value. And the kid is the kid. What if I were to tell you that Evan Mobley may not be the best passing big in this draft? We talked about the footwork. We're going to talk about him in full in the Sengun episode. But yeah, him with in the pick and roll with LaMelo is going to be absolutely so much fun. So I love that, and he'll look good in that turquoise and purple. All right, so I'm on the board at 12 for the Spurs, and I am going to do the least Spursian thing that I think that you could do at pick 12. We just did an episode on him.
Oh,
I'm buying the talent. We have a guy there. He goes by the name Chip England. He's the most world-renowned shooting coach. We have Greg Popovich. We're going to take Jalen Johnson at 12. His talent is going to be too overwhelming at this point. You're losing DeMar DeRozan. You're probably, Rudy Gay is getting older. How much longer is he going to be in the Spurs' plans? And I don't think that there's anybody in that power forward spot that's saying, I can't take a shot on Jalen Johnson. So I'm going Jalen Johnson to the San Antonio Spurs and having Chip England take a crack at fixing that jumper. And if he does that, the Spurs have themselves a real steal of a talent at this spot.
Dude, that's wow. So last year, Vassell drops to them. Yep. They end up grabbing him at around that range, and everyone's like, "Brilliant! What an unbelievable pick!" And they're right. I think it was a great pick for them. And then for this year, for them to have Jalen Johnson to fall into their laps, that's actually kind of perfect. Because something, when we did the Jalen Johnson pod, I said, somewhere from 10 to 12 might be a good range for him, and for him to go 12 to the Spurs is kind of a perfect situation for him.
Yeah, you can't ask for a better guy to try to fix the jumper.
Yeah, dude. I think that's a good one, dude. I think that's a really, really good one. Okay, I'm on board.
You're on board. You got Indiana.
I'm on board. Yeah, here we go. Okay, ready for this one?
I'm ready.
Okay. So for me, I think logically, it feels like Doug McDermott's going to leave in free agency, right? I think he's going to get a contract somewhere. So it's like easy to be like, all right, white guy shooter leaving, add another white guy shooter in Corey Kispert. But I'm not here for the easy picks. Okay. I'm here because I consider myself a thinking man. I consider myself a guy who I'm trying to enter into the shoes as the Indiana GM. This is kind of a weird pick, and people may end up hating me for this pick, but I don't care. I look at Karis LeVert as a wing who is a guy who likes to hunt his shot, who doesn't like passing. We have Justin Holiday on the roster as a decent defender. I wouldn't ever go as far as to say Justin Holiday is like an amazing defender. I think he's a pretty decent defender. I liked his time on the Knicks. You have a Malcolm Brogdon, you have an Aaron Holiday, and then the cornerstone of the team being Domantas Sabonis. So my rationale is this: what if you can grab a wing who is going to actually be, depending on what sneakers he's wearing, actually be 6'10", a smooth shooter, and upside to be a really, really good shooter, I'm actually going to rock the boat a little bit. I'm taking Zaire Williams from Stanford with the 13th pick in the draft to the Indiana Pacers. I think his defensive upside, which we talked a little bit about with Jay Kyle from The Ringer, I think his defensive upside, his shooting upside, I'm like you, Corey. I like the shot. I think it looks beautiful. And if you consider all that and you put him on this roster and he potentially becomes a rock solid 3-and-D wing to supplement Sabonis and the rest of this roster, that gets really interesting. And so I'm going to go Zaire Williams at 13 to the Indiana Pacers.
I like it. And I think at this spot, Zaire can actually have some real value. Because I look at Zaire and his measurements today were great. I mean, his wingspan is not as long as you'd like it, but he is taller than I think people expected him to be. And he really struggled. Yeah. Cam Reddish struggled. Mm-hmm. But I buy the shot based on the eye test. Now, my thing with Zaire is I really don't think that he is the shot creator that a lot of people bill him as. And we've said that before a bunch of times. I think his handle is too sloppy at the NBA level to consistently create space in a way that you want from a guy who is a number 2 option, let alone a number 1 option. Maybe even a number 3 option. Okay. But if you were asking me, can Zaire Williams turn into the kind of role player that Mikal Bridges turned into? Now I'm so interested because we see Mikal's value in the playoffs. Now, Zaire has a long way to go, but Mikal had a lot more time in college to develop. So he's not going to come in with the same pedigree, championships, the numbers that Mikal did, but he brings a lot of the same intangibles. And if you're a believer in the shot, and I am, now finishing is a whole nother story, and that's going to be a work in progress, and that's going to come with body and confidence. And but the shooting, the 3-and-D upside for Zaire is intriguing. And would I take him here? I'd probably take some other guys on the board, but I think he's a good upside play here at the back end of the lottery as well. So if a team in this spot believes in that and thinks, hey, maybe there's a reason this kid was a potential top 5 pick coming into the year, and let me kind of test the waters on him and take a shot because I see at least a baseline, then that's it. You take the shot. All right. The Golden State Warriors are on the clock. They took Davion Mitchell at 7. Okay. So I'm sure that Warriors fans wanted to get into the top 4 and take one of these high upside kids. And now you say, all right, we got Davion Mitchell at 7. He's an older guy. I wish we had an upside play. Davion, I think, is going to develop. He might not be, Donovan Mitchell scoring wise, but I think he's going to be an impact player. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go safe again. Now, there's a lot of guys, and we'll talk about some of the guys who we didn't draft in this lotto in a few minutes. But for the final pick for the Warriors, I'm going to take Corey Kispert. I think that the Warriors, look, if the Warriors are actually going to be keeping both of these picks, they took their upside play in Wiseman last year. Now they want to get guys who are going to at least be able to contribute as they get back to the playoffs, because they're going to get Clay back. Steph's coming off a MVP caliber year. And now it's time for them to build out depth and to get guys who fit their system and what they do. And look, Kispert is an underrated defender. He's not a lockdown guy. And I think NBA teams will pick on him early on if he's on the floor compared to some of the other guys that'll be on the floor. But he's stronger than you think. He's a little bit more athletic than you think. And he's a shooter. And now he's going to get put into the ultimate shooting role in the league, playing with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and the Splash Brothers. So you add another elite shooter,
Jesus,
and a guy who for 4 years put up great numbers, winning program, knows how to play the game the right way. I think that it's an easy transition for the Warriors to make. Now, maybe they go a different direction. Maybe they want to take an upside. Maybe they want to go a guy like Josh Giddey, multi-position, guy who could be a primary playmaker at times. But I think Kispert you can always get a shooter on the floor. It seems like in this league, Kispert's a safe bet to be, a pretty elite shooter. And I think that rounds out the lotto. So let's go back. Detroit, big winners of the night. Take Cade Cunningham at 1. The Houston Rockets take Evan Mobley at 2. The Cleveland Cavaliers take Jalen Green at 3. The Toronto Raptors, Jalen Suggs. The Orlando Magic at 5 take Jonathan Kuminga. The Oklahoma City Thunder take Scotty Barnes at 6. The Golden State Warriors take Davion Mitchell at 7. The Orlando Magic take Moses Moody at 8. The Sacramento Kings take Franz Wagner at 9. James Bouknight goes to the New Orleans Pelicans at 10. The Hornets take Alperen Sengun at 11. The Spurs take Jalen Johnson at 12. The Indiana Pacers take Zaire Williams at 13. And Corey Kispert goes to the Golden State Warriors at 14. Now, let's talk about some guys who we didn't talk about, that we didn't draft, because there were a couple of guys who had just some interesting kind of news tidbits come out. Cam Thomas seems like he got a guarantee in the first round, right? Pulled out of the combine. So that's I feel like there's been a little bit of Cam Thomas stock rising as the days have gone by, and him getting a promise kind of backs that, or what we think is a promise. Otherwise, he wouldn't be backing out of this. What do you think about a team guaranteeing Cam Thomas in the first round?
I mean, it feels like if we were just living on draft Twitter, it feels like Cam Thomas is the absolute belle of the ball. I feel like almost every Twitter draft expert loves Cam Thomas. I think Cam Thomas at 16 is kind of interesting to the Thunder, right? Like maybe that's where he got his promise from the Thunder. Like they're like, hey, we have 6, 16, and 18. We'll take you with one of those. Because if you think about his scoring upside and you put him next to SGA and just, he can really just go out there and be a gunner and put up 20 plus points a game. That's a pretty good spot for him, I think. So I feel like a team like that probably gave him a promise, unless it was like, who knows, maybe the New York Knicks.
What about the Knicks? They have 2 picks. And what did the Knicks need in the playoffs?
Shot creation, baby.
Shot maker, man. So that could be interesting too. And he'd be a fun New York guy.
He would.
I feel like he'd be a fan. I feel like he'd be a fan favorite. Jared Butler got pulled out of like combine drills and stuff. It seems like it's health related.
Yeah.
So it's a little scary, and let's hope for the best and hope that this isn't a similar scenario to like Chris Bosh or what's his name, Isaiah
Austin, right?
Yeah, from a few years back.
Yeah.
Because Jared Butler, coming off the championship at Butler, so skilled, is a safe bet to be a really good player in the league, some kind of contributor. So it's scary, and let's hope for the best there. Here's a guy who is getting so much buzz on draft Twitter. JT Thor.
Yeah.
Talk about belle of the ball. I feel like this dude is being talked about like he's the next Giannis. I saw somebody have him at 4 today on a board.
Jesus.
Yeah, look, we have about 1 month and a week until the NBA draft, and we're gonna start seeing some wild takes. So Look, JT Thor is intriguing though. I think he had like a 7'3" wingspan. He's 6'10", not going to be
Lefty.
19 until August. He's a lefty. I love lefties. He was the only other player at Auburn that popped for me when watching Sharif's tape, and for good reason. Shot looks a little cleaner. There's a lot to like there. How much, crazy potential is there underneath there? Do I think he's like the next Giannis? No. But is there a world, I guess, where he could follow a similar trajectory as like Pascal Siakam? Probably. And I think if that's the case, then, he's definitely a guy that you take somewhere in the late teens to early 20s, if you believe that. But he's a guy that a lot of people really, really, really like on the internet. So if you haven't watched any JT Thor, do a little research into him, because you're going to be seeing his name pop up a whole bunch on the internet.
We should say, well, I was going to say JT Thor, another guy from Anchorage, Alaska. So when we're talking about upside, I think he may be closer to Trajan Langdon than he is Giannis or Pascal. But I will say the lefty stroke is nice. I mean, no one can deny that. And I think he's shooting the shit out of the ball during workouts right now. So teams seem to be pretty high on that. He's got good size at 6'10". I think he's kind of slow, though, for my taste. Doesn't have a lot of vertical pop either. Handle is kind of okay. I mean, nothing to write home about yet. But I think, man, JT Thor at 4 seems like...
It's wild.
It's
crazy. It's crazy. But look, everybody's got their guys. And if he turns out to be a top 5 player from this draft, hey,
okay, that's fine. But Corey, also, we also didn't mention, if from our mock draft, the guy who fell out of the lottery is Keon. And interestingly enough, Keon at 15 to Washington might be something. I feel like
could be.
Yeah, that might be where he stops falling, but that is a name that neither one of us picked, and I think it's very realistic that this might happen when the draft comes.
I agree. I mean, a lot of guys like him, and he's always kind of mocked in that top 10 range. So, it could be intel, it could just be guys seeing things that we're not seeing on the film. But I'd be interested to see what other people are really seeing him, because we watched and it didn't pop for me. He had moments that popped, but his size, his small frame. And I think he's one of those guys. I think if this playoffs has shown me anything, it's like, it's all about skill, man. Like, how many of these guys that are like athlete first, skill second, develop the skill needed to match their athleticism? It doesn't happen all that often. It's a bet that more times than not, you're going to lose. So if you're telling me, all right, I'm going to take this kid at 7 or 8, like, good luck. I hope that he works out for you and your team, because he plays hard and, he's got intriguing skills, but it's a little rich for me when there's, a bunch of other players on the board that I think are going to be better NBA players baseline and have the same kind of potential as him. Now, if you're telling me that you want to take him at 16, 18, 20, 22, one of these teams with multiple picks, the Rockets 23, now I'm like, all right, now we're getting somewhere, because now the upside play, the switch flipped. And now this is where the you actually win your bet. Like, if he works at this spot, you got to steal, rather than like, if he doesn't work and you picked him too early, you might be out of a job. So, that's my thing with Keon. But I think if the playoffs has taught me anything, man, it's like, the NBA is a skill-based league now, and you need requisite athleticism for sure. And the more athletic that you are, obviously, the better, chance you have to be a superstar level player, which is why, like, that's like the difference between like Miles McBride and Donovan Mitchell as a prospect. Like, small guys with long wingspans and pull-up ability and can defend, but like Donovan Mitchell is an elite athlete, and Miles McBride isn't. So that's why. And I like Miles McBride, but like, that's, the difference in where athleticism gets you. But
I think Corey, another way to frame that is to look back to a couple of years ago and the mistake that the Sixers made. They drafted Mikal Bridges and then traded him for Zaire Smith. And I think their rationale and their thinking at the time was, Zaire Smith he has tools, he has athleticism, he has upside, but they traded the guy who had like pterodactyl arms, who proved that he could do it on the college level, and a guy who had a killer killer shooting stroke. And so this is exactly what you're talking about, right? You want to have the requisite skills, and then also you also like have to balance that out and that risk that you're taking the guy with the upside. And I think Keon Johnson is a perfect example of that. I think GMs are going to look back to a scenario like the Mikal Bridges situation and be like, okay, we're sitting at 8. Do we want to take Keon or sorry, no, where did you take Kispert? You took Kispert at 14, right? So like, let's imagine the Warriors are like sitting there and Kispert and Keon's on the board. They're going to say, okay, do we want to take Keon and his athletic upside, or do we want to take the guy who is a great shooter but can also do other things on the floor in Kispert? So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense that he falls out of the lottery.
Yeah, and look, it's all going to be draft philosophies at that point, and there's going to be a whole bunch of decision makers with different philosophies, and so it's going to be interesting. And that's why we love the draft and keeping up with it for an entire year and beyond, following these kids all the way from high school to pro. So I think that's going to be it. We're doing an episode this week on later on in the week on Josh Christopher, which I am amped for.
Smaller than I thought he was.
You know what? I don't think he looks huge, but he's got a good wingspan. So, and he's strong. So I'm fine. I'm fine with his size. But we'll get into that on Josh's episode. So guys, thank you for tuning in with us for this live draft lottery post show. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And then if you haven't yet, subscribe, rate, review the Draftdaq NBA Draft Podcast anywhere that you find and listen to your podcast.
Let's go.
It's been fun. This is an exciting night, and I can't wait to get into the rest of the prospects with a little bit of more context and clarity of where all these spots are. So Josh Christopher coming up later on in the week, and we will see you then. Peace.
Peace.